Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, the American SpyFox. In today's episode, part 2, we're going to dive even deeper into that 94 Rolling Stone article. We are going to expose even greater lies. We're going to be talking about the Rome incident. We're going to talk about guns. We're going to talk about domestic disputes within the Cobain home the very month prior to Kurt Cobain's death. And if we have time, we're going to be talking about a female admirer of Kurt's, one that Courtney was aware of, one that she was extremely threatened by, and one that she was jealous of to the point that she punched the girl in the face. One that we also know Kurt liked as well. He gifted her something very dear to him just weeks before his death. This is a female admirer who also died, similar circumstances, only 2 months after Kurt Cobain. Let's get to it. It wasn't, however, until 8 days after Cobain returned to Seattle from Rome to recuperate from a failed suicide attempt in March that those close to him realized that it was time to resort to drastic measures. Paragraph 5, Rolling Stone, June 94. So we now know that, again, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse, Courtney Love's the only person that ever said it was a suicide attempt. In fact, Dave Grohl himself says in the documentary Foo Fighters Back and Forth,
when he came home, I remember talking to him on the phone and saying, "Hey man, I don't want you to die, okay?" And he was very apologetic. No, I'm sorry, it's a big mistake. I took these pills, I was drinking this champagne, and I was in Rome. It was just made a mistake.
Nirvana was on a European tour, and Hole was out touring wherever they were touring. I'm not a Hole fan, I don't pay attention to them, but Kurt and Courtney had been separated for quite some time. Nirvana comes to this break, this 2-week break in their tour, and he decides to fly to Rome. Now at this point, he has been diagnosed with influenza and chronic bronchitis, and you can actually see in this footage when he's getting off stage after the Reading Festival, you can see him coughing. The reason he wanted to go to Rome and meet up with his wife was not because he wanted to spend quality time with her. We have to remember that they have a baby together, so regardless of whether he wants to be with her or not, he still has to talk to her. He actually wanted to talk to her about their inevitable divorce, and he even called their attorney, Rosemary Carroll, and told her to take Courtney out of his will. Within hours of him meeting Courtney Love in Rome, bandmate Pat Smear and friends say that he's upset, he's angry, he's telling Courtney he doesn't want to be with her, she's fighting him, threatening to never let him see their daughter ever again, and then he ends up in a 20-hour coma. I'm throwing this out there, and clearly it's just pure speculation, but I think after all the touring, the influenza, the bronchitis, the being emotionally drained from the fighting, he was just tired, and somebody said, "Why don't you let me get you a drink? Here, take this sleeping pill and get some rest. You'll feel better tomorrow. We'll talk about things later civilly." Maybe it's possible that sleeping more Rohypnol than he thought was put into his drink. Maybe some was slipped to him, which they call sleeping pills, and they're illegal in America. They are a European thing. I don't know much about them, but I do know that I took a glass of champagne and I took diphenhydramine pills, which are legal sleeping pills in America. Threw them in the glass of champagne, gave it a little stir with my finger. They dissolved and fizzed away like nothing. I took a little tiny sip. All you could taste was the champagne. Now, is it possible that Kurt knew he was taking perhaps 1 or 2 Rohypnol, thinking, "Oh, I can handle that easy, I'm used to these," but somebody he trusted put more in without him realizing it, and then when he wakes up out of the coma 20 hours later, his brain's a mess, he's had the flu. You guys know what it's like to have the flu. You get a fever, and your mind, it's like you don't even really remember having the flu. Once you start to feel better, it's like a delirium dream, right? So he may have just thought, wow, that Rohypnol really kicked my butt, when in actuality, somebody slipped him more than he could handle. So the March 3rd, 1994 Rome incident, which only Courtney Love referred to as a failed suicide attempt, leads to another fight where Kurt's still telling her, I don't want to be with you. No matter what you do, I still don't want to be with you. I want a divorce. It leads to another fight, a domestic dispute, back in Seattle, March 18th, 1994. On March 18th, a domestic dispute escalated into a near disaster. After police officers arrived at the scene, summoned by Courtney Love, she told them that her husband had locked himself in a room with a .38 caliber revolver and said he was going to kill himself. Here we go again. The officers confiscated that gun and 3 others, along with a bottle of various unidentified pills. Later that night, Cobain told them that he hadn't actually been planning to take his own life. So what does the article tell you? The article says he had in fact locked himself in a room. Matter of fact, when the police came, they confiscated the .38 revolver that he had with him in the room. And then oddly, it says later that night, Cobain told them that he hadn't actually been planning to take his own life. Like, what do they do? Come confiscate the gun, leave, then come back to kick it with Kurt later, and that's when he told him? That makes no sense. So Tom Grant gets his hands on the actual police report from March 18th, and here's what really happened. Courtney and Kurt both needed to go to rehab. They were both on the heroin really bad. And so not only were they arguing about this, Courtney being a hypocrite saying, you're a horrible father, you need to go to rehab, when her herself is strung out, but Kurt was also pushing, yes, I want to go to rehab, yes, I want to get my life together, but no, I don't want my life to be with you. However, I still want to be a part of my daughter's life. When the police arrived, they did not find Kurt in a room with a gun. They found him locked in a broom closet with no gun. There was a .38 revolver in the home, along with 3 other guns that were confiscated, but the gun was not on Kurt. And Tom Grant has talked extensively about this particular event and stressed that Kurt did not have a gun on him. They only took the guns because it's police protocol. Whenever they go out to a domestic violence dispute, if there's any weapons in the home, they're told to take them and confiscate them for a certain period of time, almost like a probationary period. Kurt actually told the police that he locked himself in the closet to get away from Courtney, that she had been violent in the past, she had smacked him, she had punched him, and he knew that when she got to this amount of anger that she was in, she would be violent toward him. Kurt was not the type of man to hit a woman, even if the woman hit him. So he did the smart thing. He removed himself from the situation. He knew, if I keep arguing with her, she's going to attack me. That puts him in a situation where he has to restrain her or be physically violent back in self-defense, and he didn't want to do that, so he locked himself away where she couldn't reach him. So that entire paragraph is completely wrong. It makes Kurt look like a nutball who was waving a gun around in front of his wife and child, which is exactly what Courtney Love wanted us to believe, when in fact she was the aggressive nutball and he just didn't want her to attack him. So moving along, on March 25th, roughly 10 friends, including bandmates Chris Novoselic and Pat Smear, Nirvana manager John Silva, Bilig. Janet Bilig is the manager of Hole, so she's there for Courtney basically. Longtime friend Dylan Carlson, Love, and Goldberg, Danny Goldberg, who owned Gold Mountain or whatever. John Silva was his partner. They managed Nirvana. Gathered at Cobain's home on Seattle's Lake Washington Boulevard to take a different approach with new intervention counselors. Novoselic is said to have staged his own separate confrontation with Cobain as well. As part of the intervention, Love threatened to leave Cobain, and Smear and Novoselic said they would break up the band if Cobain didn't check into rehab. After a tense 5-hour session, in the 2-day process, Cobain retired to the basement with Smear, where they rehearsed some new material. Kurt again says, I don't want to leave with Courtney. Courtney urges him to go check into rehab with her. She wants it to be this big media spectacle, where the rock star and the rock star's wife go and check into rehab together, and Kurt said, I still want a divorce. I still don't want to be with you. I'm not going anywhere with you. Love ends up leaving with Janet Bilig and goes to the Peninsula Hotel, which is an outpatient detox, not a rehab. And then Kurt stays in Seattle. Now, there's a couple things that are wrong about this paragraph. Number one, from every single book I've read, Chris Novoselic was not even at this intervention, but they have him there. Now, they do have it right where they say Novoselic is said to have staged his own separate confrontation. Before this intervention, Chris approached Cobain as a friend and said, let's go on vacation together, just you and I, as friends. Let's forget about this band. Let's forget about the fame. Let's forget about the money. Just you and I go hang out like the old times, like friends. Let's talk this out. Because of Courtney interfering in that conversation, guess what happened? Kurt ended up turning him down. And then at that point, Chris went home to oversee home repairs. The other thing that's wrong about this is Smear and Novoselic did not threaten to break up the band. They just said, we need to take a break until you get your drug addiction under control. And Courtney Love wasn't threatening to leave him. He already wanted to leave her. She was threatening to prevent him from being able to see Francis. And that's ultimately why he did go to rehab. He did several days later, and we will get to that, because Courtney said, if you don't go to rehab and get your together, you're not going to see our daughter anymore. And that was the thing he loved more than anything in the world. That's why he went to Exodus. Not because Love threatened to leave him. That is complete nonsense. It is well recorded and documented that he already asked her for a divorce. How can you leave somebody who wants to leave you? And honestly, the paragraph proves that Kurt wanted to leave her. She's saying, oh, I threatened to leave him, but he wouldn't go to rehab with me on the same day? That makes no sense. If he was afraid of her leaving him, then clearly he would do whatever she asked. He would leave with her. Yeah, let's go check into rehab together. I love you. I still want to be with you. Like, she left without him because he didn't want to leave with her. I cannot stress that enough. I hope you guys understand the contradiction in this paragraph. It's saying that Love threatened to leave him, like divorce him, but he wouldn't leave with her to go to rehab. Clearly, if he still wanted to be married to her, he would have gave in and said, yes, I'll go with you. Please don't leave me. But actually, Kurt wanted to leave her, which is why he didn't go check into rehab with her, and he stayed there while she went to LA and did a bunch of drugs in the Peninsula Hotel. Later in the paragraph, it even says, Love would say that she regretted leaving Cobain alone, that quote-unquote, that 80s tough love BS, it doesn't work, she said in a taped message during a vigil 2 weeks later. You can't leave somebody who already wants to leave you. So clearly she was playing the media. She was playing us, the fans, pretending like she still had some kind of power over this man, when she actually didn't have any power over him whatsoever, because all he wanted was his daughter, not her. And ultimately, I believe that this is what drove her to very drastic measures. But unfortunately, we're going to have to get to that in the next video. I really wanted to get to the female admirer. I can't wait to tell you guys all about this female admirer. And you guys probably know who it is. You know who I'm going to talk about. And I've dug up some things. I've read interviews with her mother. A lot of people don't know that Kurt was sort of seeing somebody else there at the end. We're going to get to that in part 3. If you like what you saw, click and subscribe. If you missed part 1, there should be a thumbnail popping up right about now. You can go ahead and click on it so you can catch 1 and 2. I will get 3 out as quickly as possible. As long as you guys keep watching and leaving those likes, I'll keep pumping them out for you, and If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, put them down below. I try to read all the comments, no matter how many there are. I actually sat and read 727 comments yesterday. So I will listen to what you have to say. I'll see you guys in the next video.